Hello, dear friends, and welcome to another Soul Vibes in this new year 2024. So, we are in January 2024, and Happy New Year to each and every one. And I hope that you enjoyed the festive season, and I hope that you've had, loads of fun. And I know also that there were a lot of energies. Well, they keep happening, all of these energies, aren't they? The waves and waves of change and waves of all sorts of things like solar flares, raised Schumann resonance, and all kind of things like that. And so we're going to talk a lot about today about a lot of things that, the things that have changed, the things that have been going on. As always, again, welcome everyone to the Soul Vibes. My name is Alexis Sersha. And for those that are new, there will be a recording available after the live broadcast, and I will upload and email the link to everyone. Not too long after the show, maybe a couple of hours. And so here we are now in January 2024. And for many of those following the stars and all of these kind of things, it is only now that really the age of Aquarius has begun. And I don't know whether you felt it, whether you're into any of these this if you're into the stars or whatever kind of these signs, all of these things, all the nature, all of the planets, the universe, it all works together with us. And when you have this deep connection with yourself, you also have a deep connection, of course, with everything around you. And so if you're like me, I kind of like to play with my reality a bit. I have a lot of humor. And so, I get a lot of synchronicity during the day, all sorts of synchronicity and all sorts of different signs. And this is the thing with who we are, those of us that have been on this journey for a long time, and also many who are fairly new to awakening and to this spiritual deepening or spiritual journey. There are many different ways in how to experience your reality and in how to experience all the different signs and things. And like I said, for me, I'm a bit humorous, so my reality shows me the humor back, and it does sort of give me all these synchronistic signs that only mean something really to me. And there is a point, as most of us know, where you realize that you cannot anymore refer to some generalized books about what the dreams mean, what synchronicities mean, what the signs mean, because it is you, your reality that you're creating, your energy. And so all of the things that happen have a very incredible personal, individual meaning to you. And when you step into your own power and you take back your own sovereign power, you are the one who decides what things mean to you. And the more you actually listen to and give meaning and understand of what is happening around you, can be just some really, as I said, funny, banal things, but they really have very deep meaning. For reality around you, every atom, everything that you see, that you perceive, that you feel, it all is very, very individualized. Your universe, your own personal universe, is extremely fine tuned, perfectly fine tuned to you. And so everything within it speaks with you, communicates with you. It is very easy to forget this. And like when person starts awakening, all of this synchronicity, they notice all of these synchronicities all of a sudden. But all of those synchronicities really have been happening before. The reality has always been interacting and relating with you intimately. individually. It's just that, we haven't always noticed. We haven't always been as in touch and as observant. And so a lot of the stuff when we awaken, of course, is just that we notice things and we realize things that have already been there. And then some, of course, are new, and it's just this dance, this interplay of all of the things that are part of our life. And so this last few weeks, over the Christmas, over the New Year, of course, the inner transformations, the changes, the waves haven't stopped. And as a matter of fact, they increased. I don't know whether you're aware, the sun is at the maximum activity this year. So there will be more and more solar flares, hitting the earth, hitting the magnetic fields. As each one, we know all of the stuff that is happening with the weather, with the society, with all of that. But more importantly, these energies are here to assist us. They to transform, to keep digging almost deeply into ourselves, into our psyche, into our identification, into our story of who we are, that we carry as a mantle. It is like we put on this mantle, and even though in the past this mantle, the story of who we are, who we identify with, it was true. It was a reflection of who we were expressing at that time. But now, as we infuse more and more with our own soul self, with the wholeness of our being, more and more, what was that part who we were feels quite inauthentic. And this too is a normal part of living a soul-filled life. We keep, we keep acting, we keep playing with all these identifications, and then we let them go, and we take on a new identification. And so now, being that we are in this Aquarian age, it requires us to wear new mantle, new clothes, new of who we are. And so every time this kind of huge shift happens, there can be confusion, there can be a feeling of loss, there can be a feeling of sadness. For within that story, within that identification that we're letting go, when this point of separation happens, and there was a huge point of separation, and the point of separation for the it happens perhaps in a second, or it kind of slowly unravels, and we realize we keep separating from another person, from other people, from society, from who we were, and from the mantle, from the identification of who we were. And so at that time, it can feel very confusing also, because we're not used to new, perhaps the human self, part of this whole play, this theater that we are on the inside and on the outside. The human self is not ready to go. Perhaps the human self may be stuck in the, some parts can be so, we can be so unforgiving to self, to others. We can still perhaps at a deep level that up until now we weren't even aware of. We're holding grudges, perhaps we're holding grief, we're holding all of these kind of emotions and feelings and hardnesses, and there can still be some unforgiveness of self, the hardness, the harshness of self, because when we let go of that story of who we are, it's not like we complete it. You see, when we let go a certain idea and identification, within that there can be a lot of incomplete things, because that, like, a story as a whole ends, when we let it go. But within that, there are stories within stories. There may be, things that you haven't completed, you feel like you haven't completed with a person, or all of a sudden you realize how perhaps now from a new vantage point, from a new you, from this new identity who you now take on, who you were before perhaps doesn't look up to your new standards. Perhaps you realize, wow, I haven't treated this person well and I didn't even know it, and things like that. And so as you let go, all of that goes. And so, sometimes there can be that holding on still because you think, wow, I still have to complete that. I have to perhaps say sorry to that person or whatever that it is. So this point of separation, this taking on the new is very complex in a way. And it involves a lot of different parts, components, and things. And so as we've kind of been keep reminded, and all our non-physical friends keep reminding us, and have over, the last few years, is just how important it is to become familiar with your inner voice, to become to build trust, to allow trust to develop with that part of you where you feel, where the insights happen, where the impulses happen as to what you want to do, because that too has gone new now. That place, that space, it is much clearer now. It is much more, so to speak, louder. It is much more, at the same time, quiet, because of all of the work that we keep doing, we've done, we can hear that we've cleared a lot of the stuff. And for each person, it is even more important now to realize how individual, how different all of us are. And for some, perhaps still, we don't realize that it's okay to say no to others. It is okay to say no, not even, it doesn't have to be like in your speech, but within yourself, to say no to those who have assisted us up to now, to the teachers, to all sorts of things. It is okay now to say a much louder no. And that goes also for our non-physical friends. For if one is to realize and nurture and live out of that safe space on the inside, out of that sovereign space where you are the master of your own self, of your own home, of your own throne, there is no one else is in that space. No one can go there. No one can touch that space. But it can feel at times as if if someone can, because if one keeps, if you keep giving in to the authority of another person, or whether physical or non-physical, they are non-physical friends, ascended masters, they expect us at some point on this journey to say no to them, to say no in a firm but friendly way. No, you can't pass this line. This line is where I am. I live here. I decide. I say what is true. I I am the definer of what this means, what that means, what the other mean. And I know for some people, have had some difficulties also with experiences in the past, or, the so-called teachers or channelers, or whomever, that, there's so much stuff going on within this world that we call spiritual community. And, your clue is, if a person is not comfortable with you taking your own power back, then that's a for sure sign, or whether they don't treat you then well, or whether there are consequences, that's a for sure sign that that person then is not got your best interest anymore at heart. Because, you know, if you say, this is the whole point of this journey, to come to this space of self empowerment, of your own sovereign space, of defining your truth and who you are. And so I noticed that this has been a lot of the themes, lately, and it has to really do because with the world, with the way the energy is now, that requires us to be even more clear, even more decisive, even more uncompromising with what we say yes to, with what we say no to, and also being okay with our individual journey, with us being each one being a very unique person that we are, and then there's also um new, how can I say, in this point of separation that we've experienced and been experiencing, there is almost feels like these parts are resurrecting, even more authentic parts, even more of who you really are. And so there is a huge shift. It's huge, loads of things that are happening at the moment. And so for people that are feeling, if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling push or pressure, if you're feeling tired and without the energy, be even more gentle with yourself, have compassion, and be okay with it. Be okay with being uncomfortable. And be also okay to allow up to now unallowed parts, feelings, emotions about what you felt about yourself, about what you felt about others, about the world. Allow more fog to dissipate from your eyes, from your ears, from your senses. Because truth, even though as you're experiencing it, and you're experiencing the clearing, the cleansing, and for some it is not very comfortable, because we're walking in this world of harshness, of hardness, of so many painful things that we've experienced. We've had to build these huge walls. And it is for some only now in this energy that is really pushing and cleansing and clearing. And as I speak, feel more and more of what you haven't been able to release up to now, what you haven't been able to feel up to now. Feel it, allow it to flow. And there can be this feeling of hardness in solar plexus, vulnerability in the heart area, things within the throat area, and all of them relate to something. The throat, unexpressed anger, unexpressed words, unexpressed parts of self. And so allow those parts that perhaps had been dead for a while, for a long time, perhaps have never been even given a chance in this lifetime, to resurrect, to feel this light, to come alive like a phoenix from a fire, from burning all of the impurities that have been burnt away. And you can feel this brand new, soft and gentle part of yourself, so vulnerable, so fine, so alive, so uniquely you. A new way to feel yourself as authentic you, like you've never felt before, and allow everything else to wash away. The hardness, the walls of the prison, inner prisons, the walls of the inner chambers and spaces that have been closed. Allow those to dissipate, to melt. And all of those feelings and emotions that we know, even whether they're of light, so-called light, whether they're of so-called darkness, that we know from fairy tales, and we assign them to, the evil mother, the evil father, the all sorts of things. Allow those feelings to come home. Allow those parts to come home, the harshness, the hardness, the unforgiveness. For dear friends, in this journey, you really go deep. You come and you experience some spaces and places and parts of yourself where, you wonder, you come to wonder, is this even resolvable? Is this even forgivable? Is this even, can one get over this? Can one let go of this? Can one even recover after these kind of revelations, whether of self, whether of the family situation, whether of relationship with a partner, whether of society? That these inner revelations are huge, enormous. You can also sometimes feel in shock with what is going on, with the amount of devastation that was created on the inside. The parts that were so hateful, self-hateful, hateful of other people. Allow them to come home, own them, bring them home and see how they transform. For you now have this vulnerable heart, this incredible compassion from the soul, and let the soul embrace them, hold them, release them into freedom, into love, because they too want to be home. For dear friends, we are such incredibly immense, complex beings, and our soul can hold so many, like an infinite variety of experiences, of feelings, of emotions, of senses, of parts, of aspects, of facets. There is nothing that it cannot look at with the eyes of compassion, with the eyes of forgiveness. And so when you wonder, when you come across these kind of parts of yourself, when perhaps before you didn't want to realize or look at just how, horrific you were to yourself, some parts of yourself, how unforgiving, how harsh, how judgmental. These are not parts that a human self can transform. You, the human self, are a vessel through which these flow home within the soul. Because unless all of this is allowed in, forgiven, allowed the incredible forgiveness, these fresh sacred waters of forgiveness to wash away these parts. These are the ones that cause pain, discomfort, diseasement, all these kind of things within the body, or whether it's a physical body, whether it's an emotional body. And these energies now are now uncompromising in this way. They shine the light on everything, whether each one of us, whether we like it or not. They shine the light on all of these parts, not to judge, not to, make one's life hard, but to finally release. And so these times have required that. It matters not how long you've been doing this. It matters not whether you feel that you've done it already. For sure, there's more there, and because we've not really consciously been in these spaces of ourselves where we are. Each one has expanded. Each one is asked to let go of the old story. Each one is asked to get familiar and feel, excitement of the fresh, of the new. And so, of course, with all of these things, the commitment, the level of commitment to yourself has shot up another notch, or maybe a few. The commitment to your journey, to your path, to your choices, to your truth, to your authentic self, to who you want to be now, what you want to manifest, how you want to perceive. And most of these things, it's like we've never, for me, Alexis, the space I'm at now, I have never experienced it before. All of the things I can feel, all the different things, all the different potentials that, funnily enough, even in my childhood self, the old story, I dreamed of. It was some kind of wishful thinking, and yet now here they are real. And it asks me to try try things I've never in my whole life done before. Feel what I've never felt before. Explore, experience, step out. And all of these things, it is not about whether one is public or not. When I say step out, I don't mean out into the public view or anything like that, meaning stepping out into these new potentials, new roles, new you, and to really feel the student part of yourself again. Doesn't matter the age we are, we always have this student part. And when we do this huge change, huge step into the new spaces like we have, the best way to navigate is with that humbleness, not the fake humility, but with that humbleness of realizing that being a student is wonderful, that being a student is exciting. And it's what helps in this new space, because you can then open your eyes, so to speak, and explore, be open to exploration, be open to learning. Because learning, if one stops being open to learning, because one believes that one knows everything already, and there is a part, a master self, that knows a lot, but there's also the student self. So allow the student, there is no space for for attitudes of pride, of attitudes of these kind of things, of I know it all already, because this is what is stopping you. This is what is making these transitions, these new, more painful. So if you have never or do it more than ever before, put on a mantle, part and act of a student of this new space, of learning, of being open to changing, to flowing, to rearranging, to change your mind about things. You know, there is no space in this new space, the rigidity of thinking, of feeling, of habitual, ingrained trenches of thought, of patterns, of anything, because these are what makes life now in this space is painful. Because these new energies are flowing, they're fresh, they're exciting. Imagine being this new, fresh brook, like a little, a little, not river yet, but like a brook water in the mountains that has just come out into the light of the day. You're fresh, you're new, you're still empty of fish in life because that happens, further down, but you are ready for this new adventure and you are flowing, you are malleable, you change, you adjust to the stones that you find on the way. And yet if you were like an ice block, there would be a lot of friction. You would still be kind of flowing, but there would be a lot of friction and it could hurt. And so this kind of flexibility is required, and the commitment to who you now feel yourself and want to be. And so this authentic you, allow it to permeate you, to show you its feelings, and feel them and then act on them. And be committed to follow through, to go with what this new you is asking you to do, whether it's in relationships, whether it's whatever it is, it's probably in all of those areas. And of course, the importance of flowing, and also this importance, as I mentioned at the beginning of things, of more and more, relying on your own voice. And the fine-tuning of discernment is also very important in these times, because there are so many, like every little thing it's got a number of different meanings, and at times it feels like, for example, that this journey, it feels even more now that it is like walking on a razor blade. There's such thin, it's like you almost feel like, okay, if I fall into this way, I might fall into, being lost for quite a bit of long time. And if you keep making the right choices, you stay on the top of this very narrow pathway. And for example, that like for one example would be, when I say, okay, follow your own inner voice and your own inner feelings and your own inner knowingness. And then if not everything has been integrated, parts, the aspects, we can have, each one of us has, not we can, but being who we have very destructive parts, and parts that mean us harm, and especially, for example, let's say a person, which many of us have had quite a difficult lives in this lifetime. We may have had difficult childhood, difficult parents, difficult teachers, or whomever were in authority. You know, life is full of very, very broken people, manipulative, narcissists, all of these kind of things we've had to deal with. And so to cope with that, we've created a lot of aspects, a lot of different parts. And so when I say, okay, listen to your voice. So some people say, well, how do I know whether it's a voice of my soul, whether it's a voice of this destructive aspect? And this is what it means to practice. We always practice. So once you start listening, you will get to know very quickly whether this is a voice of self-love, or whether this is a voice of an aspect that perhaps doesn't have your best interest at heart, but wants to come home. And so as you keep practicing and practicing, until you cannot mistake the voice of self-love in doubt. If in doubt, apply self-love. Stop. You don't have to make the decision. Feel, breathe, feel self-love towards yourself. And you will see that inside that's of you, the space expands. And in that expansion, there is knowingness, there is time, there is space to feel, to get to know what is your real, authentic, self-loving voice upon which you can trust. And for many, you would have noticed how much stronger this voice has become, or rather, not a voice like this knowingness. You now cannot, for many, now you cannot anymore even pretend you don't know certain things. Like you meet another person and you straight away can know that there's something off with them, something not quite right. Believe it, believe that. Because very often, well, the whole matrix is made in a way to disbelieve our own intuitions, as we know, and we talk a lot about that. But now you're asked to take up the next level of this trust with yourself. When you get a hunch, when you get intuition, when you get synchronicity about something, believe it, act on it, even if you are the only person that feels that way about a certain person or a situation. If a situation gets your skin, the hair on your skin, believe that and move away from that situation. If a person gives you the feelings of, wow, there's something creepy about this person, believe it. Because you are now, each one of us are now at a whole different level of being able to perceive. So we cannot really trust anymore, especially, others in other people's perceptions, because this gap between people that are awakening or in this transformation or awakened or enlightened or whatever phase, and people who have said no to all of this has gotten huge. If you haven't noticed, this last month has been huge with that. And so perhaps in the past, the habit was to, discount your intuitions because maybe no one else feels it. And you will now notice that very often no one else does feel what you feel, but you have to act on your intuitions and synchronicities and whatever happens. Like, for example, let's say, my reality does play some funny things, or maybe not so funny. I'm very good with some, and I enjoy, and I do a lot of, let's say, renovations and home maintenance and all of that. And for the people that have, um, houses or whatever, there's always something to fix and something broken. And so as a single lady, I've had to learn lots of things. So anyway, my kitchen tap was leaking. That was a couple of years ago. I'm just this uh, this example came to mind. So my kitchen tap is leaking. That normally means that, okay, my reality is saying to me, I'm leaking energy. So there's some kind of imbalance, whether it's with person or with event or with something. There is some kind of imbalance, and I have to kind of look where I'm leaking this energy. Anyway, so it took me, I couldn't fix it. I couldn't unscrew it. You know how sometimes the screw becomes very used up, and it took me for like a couple of weeks to work out how am I going to fix it. Then I fixed it, and of course the next day the whole thing just flew off and the water sprayed out even through my kitchen into my living room. So I thought, wow, I take these things a bit annoyance, but also with humor. And it's like, yeah, something typical of what I would do, just create this kind of waterfall in my house. But it showed me that truly there was someplace, somewhere, I was leaking. And straight after I was able to fix that, I got a message from a person who wanted to borrow money. And this person, there was a little bit off the feeling, but this time I really stopped and noticed, wow, this is where I'm leaking. So this person is needing something, and I had to then work out, wow, I'm here enabling their pattern rather than assisting the person to transform. And this is also like an example. So and then later, 2 years later, only actually now few other people have said that same thing has happened to them with that person. And so it was also a confirmation for me. But now I'm asked that I don't need this kind of confirmations anymore. That if my reality shows me and my knowingness shows me these things, then I have to act on them, which I did act on them. But in the past, maybe I wouldn't. I wouldn't even know they're related. I wouldn't notice my knowingness. I would have the part that wants to rescue and help and all sorts of things. I would have participated in that enabling game. And another thing here too, when we talked about how there are things with such nuance now, you know, you need to know when you are enabling something, or when you are helping someone, when they're in a transformation process. Because now it's very clear with the feeling when someone is actually said yes and then transforming the pattern, because very often while they're in that state, it could be even for a decade or more, because some of the patterns, as you know, take a long time. Some things to heal, to whatever, to move, to transform, to integrate. A person can be so-called quite difficult in that time. We've all been, I've been. But when you feel the difference, that they're transforming, they said yes, you can have incredible patience and give support to that person, because it is a game of love. But if a person is just doing the same pattern and they want to fix and they want to feed from you, and you are then an enabler of that same pattern, you have to be able to discern that very quickly, very clearly. And then you, of course, you have to be able to say no if you don't want to be part of that, being an enabler anymore. And so this is an example of all of these kind of things that are so nuanced now. You can't just look at another person and say, oh yeah, this. You have to really feel and understand your knowingness, and get to really understand your environment, what it's telling you for every little thing, every little um, nuance of your environment that you live in is responding to you, is communicating with you, is talking to you, is singing to you, with you, is dancing with you. And so, a few years back, we kind of talked about these kind of things, but now they are very much a reality. And so it is when you're doing these things that your life then is that flowing, graceful, gentle, and at the same time exciting, full of wonder, full of new things. But it and it requires for that, all of those things to happen. It requires the flow, the vulnerability, the ownership of your energy, of your creatorship that is creating. And at the same time, it requires, that humbleness, the surrender to your own greater self, to your soul, because that part brings the forgiveness. That part can bring back to life the parts of you that have been dead. The parts, and the parts that needed that resurrection, and the parts that that are new. It's that soul self that is present now, that resolves all of these things. But it needs your vulnerable and open heart, and a flowing heart, and a gentle heart that is open, like that student, the child, to learn, to understand, to know that, okay, sometimes I make an error and mistake, and I just do it again and again and again. Well, friends, this new reality, it is just so different, so responsive, so alive, so filled with meaning. Even for some, perhaps you've noticed just what how plants communicate, the new levels of communication with animals, especially with pets, but with wildlife also. Everything is fresh, is new, with that new meaning, with new abilities, with new, just ready and waiting for each one to play, to interact, to bring your joy, to bring your individuality, your authenticity, your truths to the table, this table that we call life. And so, it is incredibly exciting. It is also, it can be incredibly stressful when all of these energies are pushing and pulling all these things that we can hold on to. There was many years ago, I read this little booklet. I forget who wrote it, and it was so beautifully written, like about this boy, that experienced enlightenment. And he went through the body, all sorts of different transformations and stages and steps and whatever have you. But at the end, he put some pictures of things that were dear to him from this previous life, I think in his back pocket, because he didn't want to lose that. And so then when he went on this last leg of his enlightenment, a huge wind came and wanted to pull out those pictures, and the young man nearly died because he was holding on to those memories or to those things that were in his pocket. And at the last minute, he said, okay, I'm letting them go. And he gave them to the wind. And then so we go into this new space with nothing. We have to let go of all of it, surrender at that level. And yet, at the same time, to our surprise, to our delight, all of those things that we didn't want to let go of, they are still here in our new life, but in a very new way, fresh. Imagine it is kind of like, let's say you had or let's say if one had a horrible relationship with a person and they went through horrible divorce and there was so much anger, regret, so much blame, judgment, so much harshness of feeling. Some things just like, wow, unforgivable things that each one has done to each other. Kind of like some of the wars that are happening in the world. Who's done more bad things? Is there like some cosmic, justice? There isn't really. I don't mean justice, but it's like one of those measuring devices that measures who's done worse things. It is a pointless kind of endeavor to try and work out. As many of us know that each one of us has had these kind of relationships with people that we think, wow, we could have done, differently. And especially if it's a close relationship, the betrayals in that happen, that perhaps we've never told anyone, but we witnessed them privately and they've done huge, maybe damage inside. So when these things have to let go of, there may be part that wants that justice, that wants someone to say, yes, you were right, they did all of these things. These things can be very, very deeply ingrained and identified with, especially if these things happened, let's say, in the childhood, when you don't even know any being any different way, than in this way. But when you're letting these things go, when you're letting them go to your soul and the soul takes them, they too are burnt and reborn. So imagine the feeling or the experience if after you've had this kind of devastation with that person, if you now meet that person again and there is no history between you, it's all fresh, it's all new, there is nothing to measure, there is no fight. It is like you are again meeting for the first time. And this is the kind of transformation, letting go, that we're asked to do in this stage. Really that kind where, if you all of us have had all sorts of plethora of these kind of relationships, and now when you meet them in this new space, when the slate is clean, it is new, and you can feel this incredible relief that you don't have to continue that battle, that you don't have to start from that dark place, perhaps, with this person, that you don't have to have bad memories, bad feelings, resentments, and all of these things with this person. That can also be self to self. Imagine when you meet yourself in this way, completely new in this way, where you don't, have these disappointments about yourself, perhaps, some parts that still hate self or whatever. What if you are completely fresh and new and different? This is what it means, like when you look at, your life, or you're living in this new space of yourself, of your soul, where you are embodied as a soul because you are eternal. And in the eternity of things, from this perspective, from eternity, from your soul's perspective, this is a very handy thing to know how to do. To start anew with clean slate, with yourself, with your identities, with other people, with events, with whatever. Because otherwise, in this space of eternity, feel this. Feel yourself eternal. For you are. And now, with being conscious as a human, conscious of this, how hard would it be if you remembered and dragged every resentment, every guilt tripping, every whatever other people have done to you, what you've done to other people, into this eternity, into the space of eternity? It would be crazy. It would make you crazy. It would make it impossible. That is why we are asked to burn, to let all of that burn at deep levels and come out anew, because we are eternal. And in this space, there is no space for old things, because we want to be fresh and anew. And dear friends, this is also how we embody this also, being born in a conscious way. Because that, this meaning that, if the veil, inside this veil from this life to when we're so-called dead is gone, then this being born and dying, and born and dying, it's an essential way, an essential skill to know how to do consciously, because otherwise you would just into eternity be carrying all these things with you, never being able to be new, because, like, let's say, I know that, each one of us perhaps has experienced in one of those dark moments and hard moments of our lives when we said, wow, it's actually a good thing that we die, because then all of this will be gone. But once you are conscious on this side to that side, you need to be able to have this skill to let things consciously go and be born again anew. So I invite you, each one, to play and practice with all of these things, and as much as what you can to flow and to enjoy and to be like that newborn, child that is so excited about the world, that has everything in front of them. For as eternal beings, we always have everything in front of us, regardless of what age we are in life, in this physical body. For we are eternal. And I think we've come, yes, there you go, we've completed our journey for today with the soul vibes. And I want to, again, give appreciation to each and every one of you, of us, for the courage that we each have, for the perseverance, for the courage and all sorts of these things, because we are birthing a new world on the inside and on the outside. And so, dear friends, until next time, namaste.